After sleeping with a stranger, she ends up pregnant with quadruplets, unaware he's a powerful tycoon. Hello, my dearest story lovers. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories, where every word is a step into a world of wonder. Today is an incredibly special day. It's my birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with all of you, my cherished readers. Your presence here fills my heart with gratitude and joy. I would absolutely love to hear your warm wishes in the comments below. But more than that, I'd treasure your thoughts on the stories I share. Do they touch your heart, spark your imagination? Is there something you'd love to see more of, or any way I can make this space even more magical for you? Your feedback is the guiding star of this journey. So, let's embark on today's story together, hand in hand, as we weave another tapestry of emotions, dreams, and inspiration. Thank you for being a part of this celebration and for making my birthday truly unforgettable. Let's create something beautiful together. The crystal chandeliers of the Obsidian, Manhattan's most exclusive rooftop lounge, cast prismatic shadows across Aisha Bennett's deep brown skin as she navigated through the well-heeled crowd. Her emerald silk dress, a splurge she'd justified as a celebration of her recent promotion to head pediatrician at Manhattan Children's Clinic, whispered against her curves with each step. At 28, she'd achieved everything she'd mapped out in her carefully planned life: prestigious medical degree, dream job, and a recently purchased brownstone in Brooklyn. Girl, stop overthinking and start living. Jasmine Taylor, her best friend since their pre-med days, pressed a champagne flute into her hand. The corporate lawyer's infectious energy had always balanced Aisha's more reserved nature. You're brilliant, beautiful, and finally got that promotion. Tonight's about celebration, not calculation. Aisha sipped the expensive champagne, letting the bubbles dance on her tongue. The city sparkled beneath them like scattered diamonds, and for once she allowed herself to feel truly present in the moment. Her normally tight coils were styled into a cascade of flowing curls, and the confidence of accomplishment gave her movements a natural grace she rarely acknowledged in herself. That's when she felt it, the weight of someone's gaze. Turning slightly, she caught him watching her from the bar. Tall and commanding, he wore his bespoke charcoal suit like armor, but it was his eyes that held her captive. Dark and intense, they seemed to see past her carefully constructed walls, straight into her soul. When their gazes locked, the bustling lounge faded to a distant hum. "Don't look now," Jasmine whispered, her perfectly manicured nails digging into Aisha's arm. "But that's Dominic Thorne watching you." The Dominic Thorne. The name meant nothing to Aisha, who spent more time reading medical journals than business magazines. Her world revolved around healing children, not corporate empires. Yet something about his presence made her pulse quicken in a way no man ever had. She excused herself to the powder room, needing a moment to collect her thoughts. The private lounge's bathroom was a marvel of marble and mood lighting. Aisha studied her reflection, adjusting a stray curl. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind, reminding her of all the sacrifices made to get her through medical school, of the responsibility she carried as a role model in her community. "You're allowed to want things for yourself," she whispered to her reflection, surprising herself with the declaration. Years of being the responsible one, the achiever, the perfectionist. Perhaps tonight was about more than celebrating a promotion. Perhaps it was about finally letting go of who she thought she should be and discovering who she could be. When she emerged, he was waiting. Not obviously, a man like him would never be so overt, but his subtle positioning near her path back to the bar spoke of careful intention. As she passed, the spicy notes of his cologne teased her senses. That shade of green, his voice was deep and smooth like aged whiskey, reminds me of sunrise over the Amazon rainforest. When she raised an eyebrow, he continued, "I built an eco-resort there last year. The color of new leaves in the morning light, It's exactly that shade of possibility. His words painted pictures that stirred something in her. Not just attraction, though that crackled between them like electricity, but a sense of vastness, of a world bigger than the careful boxes she'd built around her life. Do you always use geography as a pickup line? The words slipped out before she could censor them, carrying a playful edge that surprised her. His laugh was genuine, transforming his powerful presence into something more approachable. Only when I'm genuinely inspired. He offered his hand. Dominic. Aisha, she replied, noting how her smaller hand fit perfectly in his. And for the record, I don't usually do this. Do what? His smile held a hint of challenge. Talk to strangers in bars. Let myself get drawn into... She gestured vaguely at the chemistry building between them. Then let's not be strangers. He led her to a private corner of the terrace where the city spread out before them like a glittering promise. Tell me about what brings that light to your eyes when you think no one's watching. And somehow, she did. She told him about her work, her passion for healing, the joy of helping children overcome illness. He listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed he valued substance over surface. As the night deepened, she found herself drawn not just to his obvious magnetism, but to the intelligence behind his eyes and the way he seemed to truly see her. Hours slipped by like minutes. They talked about everything and nothing, art, travel, their dreams for changing the world in their own ways. When his hand brushed hers, the contact sent shivers of anticipation down her spine. The professional distance she usually maintained melted under the heat of their connection. Later, she would remember this moment, standing on the edge of a decision that would alter the course of her life. The responsible choice would be to exchange numbers, plan a proper date, follow the rules she'd always lived by. But for once, the voice of caution was silent, replaced by the thundering of her heart and the undeniable pull of destiny disguised as chance. When he murmured, "Come home with me," the words held no pressure, just possibility. And for the first time in her meticulously planned life, Aisha Bennett chose to follow her heart instead of her head. She didn't know this night would give her everything she never knew she wanted. A love story for the ages, 4 miracle babies, and a life fuller than she'd ever dared to dream. Chapter 2. Morning After Whispers. Dawn painted Manhattan's skyline in watercolor hues as Aisha stirred beneath sheets that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The penthouse bedroom slowly materialized around her. Soaring windows, minimalist art pieces that spoke of refined taste, and subtle touches of masculine elegance everywhere. Her fingers traced the Egyptian cotton beneath her, memory fragments of the night before flowing back like honey. Passionate kisses, gentle touches, conversations that had stretched into the early hours. Dominic's arm draped possessively across her waist, his breathing still deep and even. In sleep, his powerful presence softened, dark lashes casting shadows on his cheeks. Last night, they'd shared parts of themselves that went far beyond the physical, dreams, fears, ambitions. He'd told her about growing up with a single mother who'd worked 3 jobs to put him through business school, about building his empire from nothing, about his secret passion for restoration architecture. The first rays of sunlight crept across the Brazilian hardwood floors, reality intruding on their dreamlike bubble. Aisha's rational mind began its familiar march forward. She had rounds at the hospital in 3 hours, a team meeting at 10, and a full slate of patients. This magical interlude had to end. With the delicate precision of a surgeon, she slipped from beneath his arm. Her emerald dress from the night before lay draped across a leather chair, surprisingly unwrinkled. As she dressed, her eyes caught on the subtle details of his private space, a well-worn copy of Gabriel Garcia Marquez on the nightstand, a collection of black-and-white photographs showcasing architectural details from around the world, a calendar filled with board meetings and global commitments. In the ethereal morning light, everything felt different. Last night, she'd been swept away by the chemistry between them, the magnetic pull that defied explanation. Now, looking at the evidence of his life, a life so different from her own, she felt the weight of their separate worlds. He clearly occupied the highest echelons of society, while she dedicated her life to serving others, often in the city's poorest neighborhoods. The ensuite bathroom was a marvel of marble and chrome. As she freshened up, Aisha studied her reflection. Her curls had taken on a wild life of their own, and a small mark bloomed on her neck where his lips had lingered. She looked different somehow, transformed not by the night of passion, but by the moments of genuine connection they'd shared. A message alert lit up her phone, Jasmine checking if she was alive. Her best friend's series of excited texts from last night remained unanswered. "Get it, girl," followed by a string of suggestive emojis, made her smile despite her morning-after uncertainty. Back in the bedroom, Dominic still slept peacefully. She considered leaving a note but stopped herself. What would she write? "Thank you for an amazing night" seemed trite, and "I feel like I've known you, and forever" sounded desperate. Better to let this remain what it was, a perfect moment in time, untarnished by awkward goodbyes or promises neither of them could keep. Her heels clicked softly on the marble floors as she made her way through the penthouse. In daylight, she could fully appreciate the space. Sweeping views of Central Park, priceless art pieces that somehow avoided ostentation, and a subtle warmth that belied its owner's public persona. A private elevator waited to whisk her back to reality. Meanwhile, Dominic stirred, reaching instinctively for her warmth. Finding empty sheets, his eyes opened to catch a glimpse of her entering the elevator. Their gazes met for one electric moment before the doors closed. He rose quickly, moving to the floor-to-ceiling windows, just in time to see her emerge onto Fifth Avenue below. Something entirely foreign stirred in his chest as he watched her hail a cab. Women had come and gone from his life before, some seeking his wealth, others his influence. He'd learned early to keep relationships superficial, his heart guarded behind the walls of empire building. But Aisha, she'd slipped past his defenses with her genuine passion for healing, her brilliant mind, and a soul that seemed to recognize his own. The morning sun caught her face just before she entered the taxi, highlighting the elegant line of her jaw, the gentle curve of her lips that had smiled so freely during their night together. He'd broken his cardinal rule by bringing her to his private sanctuary, the one space he kept sacred from his public life. Now, watching her yellow cab disappear into the morning traffic, he felt an unprecedented urge to run after her, to get her number, to find some way to extend this connection. Pride stopped him. A man in his position couldn't chase after a woman like some lovesick teenager. Besides, she'd made her choice by leaving. The lingering scent of her perfume on his pillows would have to be enough. A reminder that sometimes the most meaningful connections were meant to be brief, their very transience making them more precious. Turning from the window, Dominic began his morning routine. His phone already blinked with urgent messages. A hostile takeover attempt of a smaller hospital chain needed his attention. The board wanted to discuss international expansion, and his sister Zara required his presence at her children's charity gala next week. He was due in Dubai in 48 hours to oversee the opening of his newest medical center. Yet as he moved through his usual morning rituals, everything felt slightly off-kilter. The coffee tasted different, the morning papers failed to hold his attention, and his thoughts kept drifting to shared laughter and conversations about healing the world. He found himself wondering about her patience, imagining her gentle hands tending to sick children, remembering how her eyes lit up when she spoke about her latest successful case. In his private elevator, descending to where his driver waited, Dominic made a decision. He'd find her. Not today. He had responsibilities, appearances to maintain, an empire to run. But soon. A woman like Aisha Bennett didn't come along often, and for the first time in his carefully controlled life, he felt something worth pursuing beyond the next business deal. The universe, however, had other plans. In the coming weeks, as he searched for her between international flights and board meetings, she would be making a discovery that would change both their lives forever. Their paths would cross again, but under circumstances neither could have imagined on this misty Manhattan morning. Chapter 3. 4 Heartbeats. 8 weeks after that fateful morning at Dominic's penthouse, Aisha sat in her office at Manhattan Children's Clinic, staring at her calendar with growing concern. The morning sickness she'd been dismissing as stress could no longer be ignored. Her medical training made self-diagnosis impossible to avoid. Her body was changing in ways she couldn't deny. Dr. Monica Ramirez, her colleague and friend since residency, noticed her distraction during their morning rounds. "You've checked your watch 5 times in 10 minutes, she observed quietly as they left a patient's room. "And you barely touched your coffee, which for you is practically a medical emergency." The bustling pediatric ward continued its daily rhythm around them, but Aisha felt suspended in a moment of private crisis. The memory of that night with Dominic haunted her, his gentle strength, their deep conversations about healthcare reform, the connection that had felt almost mythical in its perfection. Now, 8 weeks later, she couldn't even contact him. "I need a favor," she whispered to Monica, pulling her into an empty consultation room. "Off the record, completely confidential." Understanding dawned in Monica's eyes. As head of obstetrics and gynecology, she'd seen enough worried women to recognize the signs. "My last appointment just cancelled. Come to my office in 20 minutes. The walk to the OBGYN department felt endless. Aisha's mind raced with calculations and possibilities. As a doctor, she knew the statistics, the odds, the medical realities. But as a woman who'd had one magical night with a stranger whose last name she didn't even know, emotion overrode clinical detachment. Monica's private office was a haven of calm, decorated with photos of the countless babies she'd delivered. "Talk to me," she said gently, closing the door. 8 weeks ago, Aisha began, her professional composure cracking. "I met someone. It was just one night, but—" She trailed off, uncharacteristically lost for words. "Let's start with a test to confirm," Monica suggested, her tone shifting to gentle professionalism. "Then we'll do an ultrasound to check everything's okay." The minutes waiting for the test results stretched eternally. Aisha paced Monica's office, her mind spinning with implications. Her career was just taking off. The recent promotion to department head, her research on innovative pediatric treatments gaining recognition. A baby now would complicate everything. The positive result surprised neither of them. Monica led her to the ultrasound room, dimming the lights with practiced efficiency. "Ready?" she asked, spreading the cool gel on Aisha's still flat stomach. The familiar whooshing sound filled the room, but Monica's expression changed from professional focus to surprise. Her hand froze on the ultrasound wand, eyes widening as she studied the screen. "What is it?" Aisha's doctor's instincts warred with rising panic. "Monica! I'm seeing—" Monica adjusted the wand carefully, double-checking her finding. 1, 2, 3, 4 distinct heartbeats. The world stopped spinning. 4? Aisha whispered, her medical knowledge making denial impossible. "Quadruplets," Monica confirmed, turning the screen. "Look, here, and here. 4 separate amniotic sacs, 4 distinct embryos, all measuring exactly 8 weeks and 3 days. Tears blurred Aisha's vision as she stared at the screen. 4 tiny, flickering lights, each one a miracle, each one changing her life with every beat. Her hand trembled as she touched the monitor, medical training allowing her to see what others might miss. 4 perfectly formed embryos, each in their own protective sac. "This is extremely rare," Monica said softly, her professional tone gentle but serious. "Spontaneous quadruplets without fertility treatment, the odds are astronomical, and having 4 separate amniotic sacs is actually the best possible scenario for multiple pregnancies. Each baby has their own space, their own nutrient supply." The implications began crashing over Aisha in waves. 4 babies, 4 tiny lives depending entirely on her. Her hand rested protectively on her stomach as Monica printed ultrasound images, scheduled follow-up appointments, and wrote prescriptions with efficient care. "You'll need to cut back your hours immediately," Monica advised, her tone brooking no argument. "Multiple pregnancies are high risk even with twins. With quads." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "You'll need support, Aisha, both medical and personal." Personal support. The words echoed in Aisha's mind as she thought of Dominic. She remembered fragments of their conversation that night. His passion for healthcare reform, mentions of his own single mother's struggles, his dedication to making medical care accessible to those in need. Would he want to know about the babies? Could she ethically keep this information from him? But she had no way to contact him. That magical night had been about connection, not exchanging business cards or social media profiles. The irony wasn't lost on her. As a pediatrician, she constantly stressed the importance of family medical history to her patients' parents. Back in her office, Aisha spread the ultrasound images across her desk. 4 distinct profiles, 4 tiny hearts, 4 lives that would depend on her completely. Her practical mind began cataloguing necessary changes. Her brownstone second bedroom would need to become a nursery. But how did one even prepare for quadruplets? Her savings, while substantial, weren't prepared for the expenses of raising 4 babies simultaneously. A knock interrupted her planning. Jasmine burst in, waving an invitation to her annual charity gala. "You're coming this year, no excuses. I need my wingwoman to—" She stopped, noting the ultrasound images and Aisha's tear-streaked face. Oh my God. Aisha had kept that night with Dominic private, treasuring it like a perfect dream. But now, looking at her best friend's concerned face, the dam broke. She told Jasmine everything, the magical connection, the perfect night, the impossible odds of quadruplets. "We have to find him," Jasmine insisted, her lawyer's mind already strategizing. "A man like that, in Manhattan's social circles, there can't be that many possibilities." But Aisha remembered the quiet intensity with which Dominic had spoken about his privacy, the way he'd mentioned corporate rivals and business complications. "Not yet," she decided. I need time to process this, to make plans." Her medical training kicked in, providing focus through the emotional chaos. She began researching everything about multiple pregnancies, creating meticulous notes and plans. If she had to do this alone, she would do it right. Her babies deserved nothing less. As evening settled over Manhattan, Aisha stood at her office window, one hand cradling her still flat stomach. Somewhere out there, the father of her children was living his life, unaware that everything was about to change. She remembered his gentle strength, the intelligence in his dark eyes, the way he'd listened to her dreams with genuine interest. Her phone buzzed. Monica sending appointment schedules for maternal-fetal medicine specialists, high-risk pregnancy protocols, and dietary recommendations. Each message underscored the complexity of what lay ahead. But as Aisha watched the city lights twinkle to life, a strange peace settled over her. These babies, conceived against astronomical odds, were fighters already, choosing the best possible configuration for multiple pregnancy, their tiny hearts beating strong and steady on every scan. "We'll be okay," she whispered to her unborn children, a promise and a prayer wrapped into one. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. Little did she know, destiny had already set wheels in motion. In his penthouse office across the city, Dominic Thorne was fighting his own battles, unable to forget the brilliant doctor who'd captured his heart, unaware that his sister Zara's next medical appointment would change everything. The city's symphony of sirens and distant traffic played on as Aisha gathered her things, slipping the ultrasound images into her bag like precious treasures. 4 tiny hearts beat beneath her hand, a rhythm that would forever change the symphony of her life. Her carefully ordered world had transformed in a single morning, but as both doctor and mother-to-be, she felt an unexpected strength growing within her. Tomorrow would bring challenges, finding specialized prenatal care, adjusting her work schedule, planning for a future that looked nothing like she'd imagined. But tonight, surrounded by evidence of medical miracles and armed with growing maternal determination, Aisha Bennett began the journey that would eventually lead her back to Dominic, though not in any way either of them could have anticipated. Her medical training kicked in, reminding her of the risks. Quadruplet pregnancies were incredibly rare and fraught with complications. She'd need support, emotional, physical, and financial. Her pride warred with practicality as she considered her options. A sharp kick from within startled her, too early to be the baby's, just her body adjusting to its new reality. Dr. Ramirez's words echoed in her mind. Each baby has their own amniotic sac. That's the best possible scenario for multiples. They're fighters, Aisha. Fighters, like their mother, like their father, who'd built an empire from nothing, according to the fragments he'd shared that night. Aisha squared her shoulders, drawing strength from the tiny lives depending on her. She was a doctor, a healer, a woman who'd overcome every obstacle life had thrown at her. This challenge would be no different. Opening her laptop, she began researching everything about quadruplet pregnancies, creating meticulous notes and plans. If she had to do this alone, she would do it right. Her babies deserved nothing less than her absolute best. As midnight approached, she finally allowed herself to rest, one hand protectively cradling her stomach. The city's ambient noise drifted through her windows, sirens, distant traffic, the eternal pulse of Manhattan. 4 tiny hearts beat beneath her hand, a rhythm that would forever change the symphony of her life. "We'll be okay," she whispered to her unborn children, a promise and a prayer wrapped into one. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." Little did she know, destiny had already set wheels in motion that would bring their father back into their lives, though not in any way she could have anticipated. The coming months would test her strength, challenge her assumptions, and ultimately lead her to a love greater than anything she'd dared to dream possible. Chapter 4. The search begins. The evening sun cast long shadows through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Thorne Tower's executive floor as Dominic stood at his usual spot. Manhattan sprawled before him like a glittering chessboard. 8 weeks had passed since that extraordinary night, yet he couldn't escape the ghost of her presence. Even now, reviewing quarterly reports from his global medical centers, his mind drifted to conversations about healthcare reform and healing the world. "Mr. Thorne?" Valerie, his executive assistant for the past decade, appeared silently at his office door. Her expression held unusual hesitation. "Your sister is here. She's insistent." Before he could respond, Zara Thorne Richardson swept into the office like a summer storm. At 7 months pregnant with her 3rd child, she radiated that particular glow that always made him think of their mother. Her Chanel suit couldn't hide her growing belly, but she moved with the grace that came from generations of social refinement. "You missed another family dinner," she announced without preamble. "Mom's starting to think you're avoiding her new boyfriend." The Dubai Medical Center needed attention. Time zones ... His voice trailed off as Zara launched into an animated description of her recent pediatrician appointment. The new doctor at Manhattan Metropolitan Children's Hospital is absolutely brilliant, she gushed, settling her pregnant form into one of his custom leather chairs. Dr. Bennett, she's revolutionizing their approach to childhood diabetes. Did this whole presentation to the hospital board about innovative treatment protocols. They fast-tracked her promotion. But then, Zara frowned. She suddenly took emergency medical leave. The nurses are all whispering about it. Dominic's world narrowed to a pinpoint. Dr. Bennett? His voice remained carefully neutral, years of corporate negotiations serving him well. What's her first name? Aisha, Zara replied, scrolling through her phone. Here, she's in the clinic's newsletter. They did this whole feature when she made department head. The photo on Zara's phone struck him like a physical blow. Aisha, his Aisha, in a white coat, her brilliant smile warming the camera as she examined a young patient. Her natural grace translated perfectly to her professional setting, and the article praised not just her medical expertise, but her dedication to serving underprivileged communities. The timing of her leave was strange, Zara continued, oblivious to her brother's tension. Right after this big promotion, Helena at the front desk said she filed for extended medical leave, but no one knows why. She's young, seemed perfectly healthy. Dominic's mind raced through calculations. 3 months since their night together. Emergency medical leave. His heart began pounding with a possibility he hadn't considered. When exactly did she take this leave? 2 weeks ago. The clinic's struggling to redistribute her patients. She's apparently that good. Families specifically request her. Zara tilted her head, studying her brother's unusual intensity. Why the sudden interest in pediatricians? Years of corporate takeovers had taught Dominic to move swiftly when necessary. Within hours of Zara's departure, his most discreet private investigator had compiled a comprehensive file on Dr. Aisha Bennett. Her credentials were impeccable. Full scholarship to Harvard Medical School, residency at Johns Hopkins, multiple published papers on innovative pediatric treatment protocols. The file included her current address, a recently purchased brownstone in Brooklyn's transforming Park Slope neighborhood. Sir, his head of security, Garcia, appeared with the preliminary surveillance report. Dr. Bennett's schedule shows regular visits to Manhattan Thorne Women's Medical Center. She's been seen entering through the private patient entrance. The implications hit him like a thunderbolt. Thorne Women's Medical Center, one of his own hospitals, specializing in high-risk pregnancies, the same center where Zara was receiving her prenatal care. That evening found him parked outside Aisha's brownstone, his chauffeur dismissed in favor of privacy. The neighborhood was a study in transition, historic buildings being renovated by young professionals, artisanal coffee shops wedged between family-owned bodegas. Her home stood proud among its neighbors, warm light spilling from the second-floor windows. For the first time in his adult life, Dominic Thorne felt uncertain. The man who orchestrated billion-dollar deals without blinking now sat in his Bentley, debating whether to approach her door. If his suspicions were correct, his phone buzzed. An urgent message from his London office about Martinez Healthcare's latest moves. The corporate vultures were circling, sensing his distraction over the past months. Rafael Martinez, his longtime rival, had been unusually active in European markets lately. As he stared at her illuminated windows, his competing identities warred within him. Dominic, the CEO, needed to focus on protecting his empire. The healthcare network he'd built from nothing, employing thousands and serving millions. But the man who'd spent one extraordinary night with Aisha Bennett needed answers. A shadow passed behind her curtains, her silhouette unmistakable, even at this distance. Was it his imagination, or did her figure seem different? He gripped his steering wheel, knuckles white with tension. The last woman he'd allowed close to his heart had been a carefully orchestrated plant from Martinez's company, seeking insider information. Since then, he'd kept his relationship superficial, controlled. But Aisha was different. Her passion for healing came from a genuine place. He'd seen it in her eyes when she spoke about her patients. Her intelligence matched his own, her drive to make a difference resonating with his deeper motivations for building his healthcare empire. His phone buzzed again, a message from Zara. "You seemed weird today. Everything okay?" Followed by BTW, heard through hospital gossip that Dr. Bennett's been seen at Thorne Women's Medical Center. Hope she's all right. The pieces clicked into place with startling clarity. Thorne Women's Medical Center specialized in high-risk pregnancies, particularly multiples. His heart began racing with equal parts terror and exhilaration. A light rain began falling, blurring the edges of the world outside his car. Through the droplets on his windshield, he watched another shadow pass by her window. The thought of her alone, possibly carrying his child, made his chest tight with an unfamiliar emotion. His security team's report lay open on the passenger seat. They'd traced her recent activities, resignation from her position as department head, multiple visits to specialists, a sudden interest in larger living spaces, all signs pointing to a life-changing development. Tomorrow, he decided, he would have his lawyers discreetly access Dr. Bennett's medical records from Thorne Women's Medical Center. As a major shareholder, he had certain privileges, though he'd rarely used them for personal matters, if his suspicions proved correct. His phone lit up with another urgent message, the London situation deteriorating rapidly. Martinez was making moves to block the European merger, spreading rumors about management instability at Thorne Industries. With one last look at her brownstone, Dominic shifted his car into drive. He'd built his empire by making calculated moves, never acting without complete information. 24 hours wouldn't change anything. But as he merged into Manhattan traffic, his carefully ordered world felt off balance. The thought of Aisha carrying his child, the timing too perfect to be coincidence, filled him with equal parts hope and terror. He'd seen too many corporate marriages, too many children used as bargaining chips in power plays. Yet he remembered her genuine laugh, the way she challenged his views on healthcare accessibility, her brilliant mind matching his point for point. If anyone could give him a reason to merge his carefully separated worlds of business and personal life, it would be her. Rain fell harder as he reached his penthouse, the city lights refracting through the droplets. Tomorrow would bring answers, but tonight, Dominic Thorne, the man who controlled a global healthcare empire, found himself dreaming of possibilities he'd never dared consider before. His security team's final report arrived near midnight. They discovered something unusual in their surveillance, multiple deliveries from high-end baby boutiques, but in quantities that suggested more than one baby. The implications made his head spin. Sleep eluded him as he paced his penthouse, mind racing with possibilities. The European merger that had consumed his attention for months suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the potential miracle unfolding in that Brooklyn brownstone. Dawn found him in his private gym, trying to exhaust himself into clarity. But every decision, every possible approach, felt weighted with consequences. If Aisha was indeed carrying his child or children, she'd chosen not to tell him. Did he have the right to disrupt her life? Would his world of corporate intrigue and media scrutiny harm her medical career? His phone buzzed with early reports from London. Martinez was making his move, attempting to sway European board members against the merger. The timing couldn't be worse, yet Dominic found himself surprisingly calm. Some things, he realized, were more important than business empires. Garcia appeared with morning briefings, his expression grave. "Sir, we've detected unusual interest in Dr. Bennett's medical records. Someone else is trying to access them." The implication was clear. Martinez's people were already investigating, looking for leverage. Dominic's protective instincts surged. Whether or not his suspicions about the pregnancy were correct, he needed to ensure Aisha's privacy and safety. As morning light filled his office, Dominic made a series of calls, setting multiple plans in motion. Whatever happened next, he would be prepared. His empire might have been built on careful calculation, but his heart told him this was worth any risk. Little did he know, fate was already accelerating their collision course. In less than 24 hours, they would meet again in the marble lobby of Manhattan Thorne Women's Medical Center, where the truth would change everything. Chapter 5. Paths cross again. The marble lobby of Manhattan Women's Health Center gleamed under soft, recessed lighting as Aisha made her way toward the high-risk pregnancy unit. At 14 weeks, her petite frame already showed signs of her extraordinary pregnancy, the flowing lines of her maternity dress unable to completely disguise her growing belly. Each step was measured, careful. Carrying quadruplets meant every movement required conscious thought. Dr. Catherine Chen, the city's leading maternal-fetal medicine specialist, had insisted on weekly monitoring. Today's appointment would include a detailed ultrasound, genetic screening results, and discussion of her rapidly approaching medical leave. The thought of stepping away from her pediatric practice made Aisha's heart ache, but her own 4 tiny patients had to take priority now. The hospital's soaring atrium buzzed with typical morning activity, nurses changing shifts, residents rushing between departments, families navigating the complex maze of modern healthcare. Aisha's doctor's instincts catalogued everything around her, a habit born from years of training, a young mother soothing a fussy infant, an elderly man being carefully wheeled toward physical therapy, a group of suits emerging from the executive elevator, likely board members after their monthly meeting. She pressed the button for the 3rd floor, mentally reviewing the questions she'd prepared for Dr. Chen. Multiple pregnancy statistics ran through her mind, her medical knowledge both a blessing and curse. She knew exactly how complex and risky her situation was, how many things could go wrong. "Hold the elevator!" A deep voice cut through her thoughts, sending electricity down her spine. She knew that voice, had heard it whisper dreams and desires in the darkness of a perfect night. Her hand instinctively moved to protect her stomach as she turned. Dominic strode toward the elevator, his attention focused on the tablet in his hand. He wore power like a second skin, bespoke suit, emphasizing his athletic frame, presence commanding attention without effort. The months since their night together had only enhanced his magnetism, or perhaps her hormones were playing tricks on her senses. Time slowed as he looked up, their eyes meeting across the polished marble floor. His steps faltered, tablet forgotten at his side. Recognition, shock, and something deeper flashed across his features as his gaze dropped to her evident pregnancy. The elevator dinged, doors sliding open to empty space. Neither moved. Aisha. Her name on his lips held a universe of questions. She fought to keep her voice steady. Dominic. Then, because her doctor's mind never quite turned off, "What are you doing in a women's health center?" A slight smile touched his lips, though his eyes remained intense. "I own it." The world tilted slightly on its axis. Of course he did. The pieces clicked into place. The luxury appointments, the state-of-the-art equipment, the whispers she'd heard about a mysterious benefactor who demanded excellence in every detail. She'd been walking through his domain without realizing it. "Mr. Thorne." An administrator hurried toward them, clutching folders. "The London board is waiting for your video call, and Dr. Martinez wants to discuss the new cardiac wing." Dominic held up a hand, silencing the man without taking his eyes off Aisha. "Clear my schedule for the next hour." His tone allowed no argument. "But, sir, the merger negotiations?" Everything else can wait. The steel in his voice could have cut diamonds. The administrator retreated, already rescheduling what was probably millions of dollars worth of meetings. Aisha's mind raced. She'd imagined this moment 100 different ways over the past months, practiced speeches and explanations. Now, faced with his overwhelming presence, words failed her. "My office," he said softly. "Please." It wasn't really a request. The private elevator required his fingerprint, whisking them up to the top floor in seconds that felt like eternity. Neither spoke, the air charged with unspoken questions and revelations hovering on the edge of expression. His office suite occupied half the floor, all glass, steel, and commanding views of Central Park. A modernist desk that probably cost more than her education dominated one end, but he led her to a more intimate seating area. African art pieces decorated the walls, their primitive power complementing the space's contemporary lines. "How far along?" His voice was gentle but direct as they sat across from each other. 14 weeks. She met his gaze steadily. Quadruplets. He showed no surprise at the number. Of course, he'd already known. A man like him would have access to her medical records, would have investigated the moment he suspected. The thought should have angered her, but she understood the drive to gather information, to prepare for every possibility. "I've been looking for you," he said quietly. "Since that morning. Then when I finally had a lead, you'd taken medical leave. I needed time." Her hands rested protectively over her stomach. "To process, to plan, 4 babies, it changes everything." "Yes." His gaze followed her protective gesture. "It does." Silence stretched between them, heavy with implications. Through the wall of windows, Manhattan continued its eternal dance far below, unaware of the drama unfolding in this rarefied air. "I should have found a way to contact you sooner," she admitted. "As a doctor, I know the importance of medical history, family background, but everything happened so fast, and then when I found out it was quadruplets, you were protecting them." His understanding surprised her. "And yourself." Another silence, more comfortable this time. She studied him openly, the subtle signs of stress around his eyes, the tension in his shoulders speaking of battles fought in boardrooms and backrooms. "I won't let you do this alone." His voice held the same quiet authority she remembered from their night together. "Unless that's what you want." The sincerity in his eyes undid her carefully maintained composure. Hormones surged, bringing unexpected tears. "I don't know what I want. My career, these babies, the risks involved, everything's so complicated." He moved then, crossing the space between them to kneel before her chair. His hand covered hers where it rested on her stomach, and the touch sent warmth spreading through her body. "Complicated is what I do best." His thumb traced gentle circles on her hand. "Let me help, Aisha. Not just financially, though of course that's part of it. Let me be part of this journey, part of their lives, part of yours." The sincerity in his voice touched something deep inside her. This wasn't just duty or obligation driving him. She remembered their shared confidences that night, how he'd spoken of his own single mother's struggles, his drive to make healthcare accessible to those who needed it most. A flutter of movement beneath their joined hands, too early to be real kicks, but a reminder of the tiny lives depending on her choices. She looked into his eyes and saw not the powerful CEO, but the man who'd shared his dreams with her that night, who'd listened to her hopes with genuine interest. "Okay," she whispered. "But we do this carefully, take it step by step." His smile transformed his entire face, years dropping away as relief and joy replaced tension. "Step by step," he agreed. Then, with a hint of his usual authority, "Starting with moving you somewhere safer than that Brooklyn walk-up. Quadruplet pregnancies require careful monitoring, minimal stairs." She had to laugh, even as tears threatened again. Already giving orders? Making suggestions, he corrected smoothly, based on extensive research. Of course, he'd researched everything about multiple pregnancies. She wouldn't have expected anything less from a man who'd built a healthcare empire from nothing. As if on cue, his phone buzzed. Probably another crisis demanding the attention of Dominic Thorne, CEO, but his focus remained entirely on her, on their joined hands resting over the miracle they'd created together. The morning sun streamed through his office windows, painting them both in golden light. Outside, Manhattan waited, with all its challenges and complications, but in this moment, they were just a man and woman on the cusp of an extraordinary journey, their paths merging in ways neither could have imagined on that fateful night 3 months ago. Chapter 6. Truth and Consequences. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Dominic's private office suite as Aisha finished explaining everything to him. Medical charts and ultrasound images spread across his custom-designed conference table, each one documenting the extraordinary journey of their 4 tiny miracles. 4 separate amniotic sacs, Dominic murmured, his finger tracing the most recent ultrasound image. His usually commanding voice held a note of wonder she'd never heard before. Each baby developing independently. "It's the best possible scenario for quadruplets," Aisha explained, her doctor's instincts taking over. "Reduces the risks of complications. They each have their own space to grow, their own nutrient supply." She watched his face as he absorbed every detail, noting how his executive mask slipped when examining images of their children. The silence that followed felt charged with possibility and complications. Through the window, Manhattan's skyline glittered in the fading light, a reminder of the empire he'd built, an empire that would be shaken by this news. "The board meeting this morning," he finally spoke, his tone shifting to something more strategic, "was about the merger with European healthcare solutions, a deal that would bring cutting-edge treatments to millions." He ran a hand through his dark hair, a rare gesture of uncertainty. "The conservative old guard on their board, they're looking for any excuse to back out. And an instant family of 5 would give them that excuse," Aisha finished softly. Her mind raced with implications. She'd read about the merger in medical journals. It would revolutionize healthcare accessibility across continents. Dominic stood abruptly, moving to the window. His reflection showed the internal struggle playing across his features. The timing. Rafael Martinez has been circling like a vulture, looking for weaknesses. A scandal now could derail everything I've built. "I understand," Aisha said, gathering the ultrasound images with trembling hands. "The merger affects millions of lives. These babies, they're just 4 more." She fought to keep her voice steady, professional. "We can keep this quiet. I've already requested a transfer to Boston General." "Stop." Dominic turned sharply, crossing the room in 3 long strides. He caught her hands, stilling their nervous movement. "That's not what I meant." His eyes held hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I'm not choosing between my empire and our children. I'm choosing how best to protect both." The possessive hour sent warmth spreading through her chest. "Dominic, listen to me, Aisha." His thumbs traced circles on her palms, the gentle touch at odds with his powerful presence. "I built Thorne Industries from nothing because I wanted to change how healthcare worked. Make it accessible, make it better. Every acquisition, every merger, it's all been about reaching more people, helping more families." He released one of her hands to touch her growing belly with a reverence that brought tears to her eyes. "But these 4 precious lives we created, they're the most important merger of all." A knock at the door interrupted the moment. "Mr. Thorne?" Valerie's voice carried through the heavy wood. "The board is requesting an emergency session. Mr. Martinez's company just made an unexpected move in Asian markets. Dominic's jaw tightened, but his hand remained gentle on Aisha's stomach. "Give me 5 minutes," he called out. Once Valerie's footsteps faded, he turned back to Aisha. "Move in with me." "What?" The request caught her completely off guard. "The penthouse has an elevator, 24-hour security, and I've already contacted the top maternal-fetal specialists in the country." His tone was pure CEO, efficient, decisive. "You need rest, monitoring, and support. I need to know you're all safe." "Dominic, we barely know each other," she protested, even as part of her thrilled at his protective instincts. "One magical night and a medical miracle don't make a relationship." His expression softened. "Then let's get to know each other. Properly this time." He gestured to her belly. "We have about 5 months before our lives change forever. Let's use them wisely." Another knock, more urgent this time. The real world demanding attention. "The guest wing has its own entrance, complete privacy," he continued quickly. "You'd have space to yourself, but I'd be there if you need anything. Think about it, not just for the babies, but for your own health. Your Brooklyn walk-up isn't equipped for a high-risk pregnancy." Her doctor's mind acknowledged the logic even as her heart raced at the intimacy of his suggestion. The medical risks of carrying quadruplets were substantial. Having immediate access to care, not having to navigate subway stairs and winter ice. "The board is waiting, sir," Valerie called apologetically. Dominic caught both her hands again. "Say yes," he urged softly. "Let me take care of all of you." Looking into his eyes, Aisha saw not just the powerful CEO, but the man who'd shared his dreams of changing healthcare, who'd listened to her passionate plans for pediatric care with genuine interest. The man who'd just found out he was having 4 babies and immediately started planning for their safety. "Okay," she whispered, "but I keep my brownstone, and we take this slowly." His smile transformed his entire face. "I can work with that." He pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, then straightened into his CEO posture. "Car service will bring you home tonight. We'll move you in tomorrow." "That's not exactly taking things slowly," she pointed out, amused, despite herself. 4 babies, he reminded her with a hint of his usual authority. "Time is precious." His expression grew serious. "Whatever happens with the merger, with Martinez's schemes, know that you and our children are my priority. The rest is just business." The board meeting couldn't wait any longer. Aisha watched him transform as he strode toward the door, power and authority settling around him like a cloak. But just before leaving, he turned back, vulnerability flickering across his features. "Thank you," he said softly, "for giving me the chance to be part of this miracle." After he left, Aisha remained in his office, one hand resting on her stomach as she gazed out at the empire he'd built. Somewhere in the building, Dominic was fighting corporate battles, protecting what he'd created, yet he'd just declared their unplanned family more important than all of it. Her phone buzzed, a text from him already. "Car waiting downstairs. Driver has instructions to stop for anything you're craving. Rest. Tomorrow we plan our future." Tears blurred her vision as she gathered her things. Hormones, she told herself firmly. But deep down, she knew it was more. The wall she'd built around her heart since that magical night was crumbling, replaced by something terrifying and wonderful. Outside his office, she could hear phones ringing, voices raised in urgent discussion. The corporate world moving at its relentless pace, but in her heart, time moved differently now, measured in tiny heartbeats and the growing certainty that sometimes the best futures came from unplanned beginnings. Tomorrow would bring challenges, media speculation, corporate politics, the complex dance of 2 independent people learning to share a life. But tonight, Aisha let herself believe in the possibility of something extraordinary. a love story that began backwards but might just end up exactly where it was meant to be. Chapter 7. Protected. The morning sun streamed through the penthouse's eastern windows as Aisha woke in her new suite, silk sheets whispering against her skin. After 2 weeks of living in Dominic's building, the luxury still felt surreal. Her hand rested on her growing belly, feeling the subtle movements of her 4 miraculous passengers. The guest wing was larger than her entire brownstone, decorated in soothing creams and soft blues. Dominic had somehow discovered her favorite artwork, impressionist pieces featuring healing gardens and peaceful landscapes. Fresh flowers appeared daily, their subtle fragrance making even morning sickness more bearable. A gentle knock interrupted her morning reflection. "Come in," she called, adjusting her silk robe. Dominic entered, impeccably dressed for another day of corporate warfare, but his eyes held warmth reserved only for her. "Good morning." He carried a tray laden with her current pregnancy cravings, whole-grain toast, fresh berries, and the special tea his chef blended to help with nausea. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than expected." She accepted the tray with a grateful smile. Their careful dance of growing intimacy felt both natural and terrifying. The babies were actually quiet last night. He sat on the edge of her bed, hand automatically reaching for her belly. These quiet morning moments had become precious to them both, a peaceful interval before the world's demands intruded. The first threat had arrived yesterday, changing everything. "The security team has finished upgrading the building's protocols," he said quietly, his thumb tracing circles on her stomach. "Garcia's leading your personal detail. He's the best in the business." Aisha's hand covered his, remembering yesterday's discovery. A sophisticated listening device had been found in her former brownstone, along with evidence that someone had been monitoring her medical appointments. The thought of someone watching her, tracking her pregnancy, made her blood run cold. "Talk to me about Rafael Martinez," she requested, meeting his troubled gaze. "Why is he so focused on destroying you?" Dominic's jaw tightened, but he didn't deflect. They'd promised honesty between them, no matter how difficult. 15 years ago, his father's healthcare company was failing. Instead of modernizing, they were cutting corners, endangering patients. I exposed their practices and acquired the company in the resulting scandal. And now he wants revenge? It's more complicated than that. Dominic's free hand ran through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. Martinez Healthcare was his inheritance, his family's legacy. Rafael was in medical school when it happened. He had to drop out when the scandal broke. Now he's built a new empire, but it's all about profit, not patient care. This merger would shut him out of European markets completely. Understanding dawned. "So I'm not just carrying your heirs. I'm carrying leverage he could use against you." "You're carrying our children," Dominic corrected firmly. "Everything else is secondary. The merger, Martinez's schemes, none of it matters compared to keeping you and our babies safe." The intensity in his voice sent warmth spreading through her chest. Over the past 2 weeks, she'd seen beyond his powerful CEO facade to the man beneath, passionate about healthcare reform, dedicated to his family, and increasingly protective of her in ways that had nothing to do with their babies. A knock at the door interrupted their moment. Dominic's head of security entered after their acknowledgement, his expression grave. "Sir, we've intercepted another attempt to access Dr. Bennett's medical records. The trace led to a shell company in Singapore, but—" "Martinez," Dominic finished grimly. He turned to Aisha, his expression softening. "I need to handle this. Will you be okay with Garcia's team today?" She nodded, touched by his concern but determined to maintain her independence. "I have telehealth consultations with my patients this morning, then a checkup with Dr. Chen." At 16 weeks, her pregnancy was progressing well, but the risks remained high. Dominic hesitated, clearly torn between his protective instincts and respecting her autonomy. They'd had several heated discussions about balance. Her need to continue working despite his desire to wrap her in cotton wool, his struggle to share control after years of running everything in his life. "I'll have the car ready for your appointment," he said finally. "Garcia's team will maintain distance unless needed. Just, please be careful. Always." She caught his hand as he rose to leave. "You be careful too. Martinez isn't just after your business anymore." His expression darkened. "Let him try something. I've spent 15 years building safeguards he can't imagine." He leaned down, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead, a new gesture that never failed to make her heart race. "Rest, doctor's orders." "I am a doctor," she reminded him with a smile. "Even better reason to follow medical advice." His phone buzzed with urgent messages, but he ignored it for another moment, drinking in the sight of her. "Dinner tonight? The chef's making that salmon you've been craving. Only if you promise to finish work at a reasonable hour." Their negotiating skills had evolved rapidly over the past weeks. "The babies need to hear your voice too." His whole expression transformed at the mention of their children. Every evening he'd sit with her while she played classical music for the babies, his strong hand spanning her growing belly as they discussed names and dreams for the future. After he left, Aisha moved through her morning routine, trying to focus on her patient consultations instead of worrying about shadowy threats. The penthouse's security rivaled Fort Knox, and Garcia's team was discreet but ever-present. Mid-morning, a delivery arrived, a gorgeous antique rocking chair, perfectly sized for her shorter frame. The card read simply, "For late-night storytelling. D." Tears pricked her eyes as she ran her hand over the smooth wood. Hormones, she told herself firmly, but knew it was more. Every day, Dominic found new ways to show he wasn't just protecting an investment or doing his duty. He was building a future, creating a home for their unconventional family. Her phone chimed with a message from him. "Meeting running long. Don't forget to eat lunch. Garcia reports you skipped yesterday." She smiled, typing back, "Doctors make terrible patients." His response was immediate. "Good thing you have me to keep you in line." The easy banter felt natural now, their relationship deepening despite the complicated circumstances that brought them together. She'd learned to read the subtle signs of stress in his voice, and he'd become attuned to her unspoken needs. Later, reviewing her patient's files, Aisha's mind drifted to the future. 4 babies would change everything, but somehow the thought didn't terrify her anymore. Dominic's quiet strength and unwavering support had transformed her fear into cautious excitement. A shadow passed her window, just Garcia's team doing their rounds, but it reminded her of the threats lurking beyond their sanctuary. Rafael Martinez was still out there, plotting, watching. But here in this space they'd created, surrounded by protection and growing love, Aisha felt strangely peaceful. Her hand rested on her stomach, feeling the flutter of movement within. "We're safe," she whispered to her babies. "Your father would move heaven and earth to protect us." And somewhere in her heart, she knew it was true. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The afternoon sun painted patterns on her new rocking chair as Aisha reviewed her patient files. Outside, Manhattan hummed with energy, unaware of the drama unfolding in its midst. But here in their private world, love was growing stronger than any threat, building a foundation for the extraordinary family they were becoming. Chapter 8. Complications. The monitors beeped steadily in the private suite of Manhattan Women's Health Center as Aisha lay still, trying to control her rising panic. At 30 weeks, her blood pressure had suddenly spiked during a routine checkup, and Dr. Chen's concerned expression had triggered every medical fear she'd been suppressing. Pre-eclampsia, Dr. Chen confirmed, studying the latest readings. We need to start magnesium sulfate immediately and monitor you closely. She squeezed Aisha's hand reassuringly. You know the protocol. You've counseled enough mothers through this. But being on this side of the diagnosis felt vastly different. Aisha's doctor's mind catalogued every risk. Seizures, placental abruption, premature delivery. At 30 weeks, the baby's lungs weren't fully developed. Every day they could stay inside would increase their chances. Dominic burst through the door, his usual corporate polish forgotten in his rush from a Tokyo video conference. What happened? He demanded, immediately moving to her side. His hand found hers, warm and steady, despite the fear in his eyes. Dr. Chen explained the situation succinctly, knowing both her patient's medical background. The next 48 hours are critical. If we can't stabilize her blood pressure, do whatever's necessary, Dominic interrupted, his grip on Aisha's hand tightening. Money is no object. If we need specialists from anywhere in the world... Dominic, Aisha's voice was soft but firm. Dr. Chen is the best. You know that's why you hired her. Their eyes met, volumes passing between them. We need to trust her judgment. He subsided, though she could feel the tension thrumming through him. Over the past months, they'd grown closer than either had expected. What had started as a practical arrangement had deepened into something profound, their shared concern for their unborn children bridging their different worlds. The next hours passed in a blur of medications, monitoring, and quiet anxiety. Dominic never left her side, his empire running on autopilot as he focused solely on her and their babies. He took calls in whispered tones by the window, delegating everything that didn't require his immediate attention. Late that night, as city lights twinkled beyond the hospital windows, Aisha watched him pacing, his jacket discarded, sleeve rolled up, tie loosened. The powerful CEO was gone, replaced by a man terrified of losing everything that truly mattered. Come here, she called softly. When he reached her bedside, she guided his hand to her belly, where one of the babies was particularly active. Feel that? They're fighters, just like their father. His face softened as he felt the movement. Like their mother, he corrected. I've never met anyone as strong as you, Aisha. She smiled despite her exhaustion. Sweet talk won't change my mind about the nursery color scheme. His laugh was shaky but genuine. They'd been arguing good-naturedly about nursery designs, Dominic's preference for sophisticated neutrals clashing with her desire for bright, stimulating colors. These normal parents-to-be discussions had become precious to them both, anchoring them in domestic reality despite their unusual circumstances. I'll paint it neon pink myself if you'll just stay strong, he murmured, his vulnerability showing through his usual confidence. You and these babies, you've become everything to me. I can't... Shh. She tugged him closer, her heart aching at the raw emotion in his voice. We're not going anywhere. Remember what you told Martinez's board when they tried to block the merger? Failure isn't an option. His free hand cupped her face, thumb brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. That was business. This is... He struggled for words, unusual for a man whose rhetoric could sway international markets. This is my heart walking around outside my body, all 5 of you. The monitors beeped steadily as they sat in comfortable silence, both lost in thought. Outside the private suite, Garcia's team maintained their vigilant watch. Even in crisis, they couldn't forget the threats lurking beyond these walls. Martinez's attempts to access medical records had grown more aggressive, his desperation to find leverage against Dominic increasing as the merger proceeded. Dawn was breaking when Dr. Chen returned with cautiously good news. The medication was working, Aisha's blood pressure stabilizing. Bed rest, she ordered firmly. Complete bed rest until delivery. We'll monitor daily, but you need to stay calm and quiet. I'll ensure it, Dominic promised, his CEO authority returning slightly. They all knew keeping a dedicated doctor inactive would be challenging, but Aisha's own medical knowledge made her understand the necessity. As Dr. Chen left, Aisha caught Dominic's hand. "The merger meeting today. You should go. I know how important it is." He shook his head. "Already rescheduled. Some things are more important than business deals. The European expansion would help millions access better healthcare," she reminded him. "That matters too. It's why I fell in love with you that night, you know. Your passion for changing the system, making it work for everyone." They both froze as she realized what she'd said. The word they'd been dancing around for months hung in the air between them. Dominic moved closer, his eyes intense. "Say it again." "The merger is important." "Aisha." His tone held equal parts warning and plea. She met his gaze steadily, hormones and fear and months of growing feelings breaking down her last walls. "I love you. Not because of these miracles we created, though I love them too. I love your brilliant mind, your dedication to helping others, your strength and your hidden gentleness. I love." His kiss was gentle but fierce, mindful of her condition, yet unable to contain his emotion. When they parted, his forehead rested against hers. "I love you too. More than I thought possible. When I thought something might happen to you." The monitors caught a spike in her heart rate, making them both laugh softly. Dr. Chen burst in, alarmed, then smiled knowingly at their guilty expressions. "Less excitement," she admonished, checking readings. "Even good excitement. Rest now. Confessions of undying love later." After she left, Dominic settled into the chair beside Aisha's bed, their fingers intertwined. The city awakened beyond their windows, but in their private cocoon, time moved differently, measured in steady heartbeats and shared breaths. "We'll get through this," he promised softly. "All of us. Then we'll figure out everything else. Nursery colors, corporate mergers, keeping our families safe from whatever Martinez throws at us. Together." Aisha squeezed his hand, feeling their babies move beneath her other palm. The road ahead would be challenging. Medical complications, business rivalries, the complexities of merging their different worlds. But looking at Dominic, seeing the love and determination in his eyes, she knew they could face anything. The morning sun painted their joined hands in gold as monitors beeped steadily. 4 tiny hearts and 2 adult ones beating in symphony. Whatever came next, they would meet it with the strength they'd found in each other, their unexpected love story growing stronger with every challenge overcome. Chapter 9. 4 Miracles. The operating room buzzed with controlled urgency as a team of specialists prepared for the cesarean delivery. At 32 weeks, Aisha's condition had deteriorated rapidly, leaving no choice but to deliver the quadruplets. Dominic, dressed in surgical scrubs, held her hand as the anesthesiologist administered the spinal block. "Blood pressure holding steady," a nurse announced, monitoring the vital signs of both mother and babies. The finest medical team in the country had assembled, each specialist hand-picked by Dr. Chen and vetted thoroughly by Dominic's security team. Even now, Garcia's people maintained a protective perimeter around the operating suite. "Remember our agreement," Aisha whispered to Dominic, her medical training warring with her emotions. "If anything happens." "Nothing will happen," he interrupted fiercely, his grip on her hand tightening. "You're all going to be fine." But she saw the fear behind his confident facade, the same terror that had haunted him since her condition worsened. Dr. Chen's voice carried calm authority as she began the procedure. "Everyone ready? Let's meet these little fighters." The next moments passed in a blur of sensation and emotion. Aisha felt pressure but no pain, her doctor's mind cataloguing every sound and movement, even as her heart raced with anticipation. Dominic's eyes never left her face, though she knew he was listening intently to every word from the surgical team. "First baby coming," Dr. Chen announced. Seconds later, a strong cry filled the room. "Baby A is a girl. Perfect APGAR scores." Tears streamed down Aisha's face as she heard their daughter's powerful lungs. Dominic's composure cracked, his eyes glistening as a nurse quickly showed them their firstborn, tiny but fierce, with a head full of dark curls. "Baby B coming. Another girl!" The second cry joined her sister's, equally strong. "Excellent scores, good lung development. Two perfect princesses," Dominic whispered, kissing Aisha's forehead. His usual corporate polish had completely dissolved, replaced by raw emotion. "Here comes baby C. It's a boy." The third cry was slightly softer but determined. Good color, strong vitals. Aisha felt lightheaded with joy and relief, but her doctor's instincts noted her dropping blood pressure. The medical team moved with increased urgency. "Last baby, everyone. Baby D is another boy." All 4 babies delivered successfully. The operating room erupted in carefully controlled celebration as 4 distinct cries merged into a symphony of new life. Nurses rushed the babies to waiting incubators, each one tiny but fighting with characteristic family determination. "BP dropping," the anesthesiologist warned. "Starting transfusion." Dominic's face tightened with concern, but Aisha squeezed his hand reassuringly. "Go with them," she urged. "Stay with our babies. I'm in good hands." For a moment, he looked torn between his children and the woman he loved. Dr. Chen made the decision for him. "Mr. Thorne, go meet your children properly. We'll take excellent care of their mother." The next hour passed in a carefully orchestrated dance of medical expertise. As the surgical team closed and stabilized Aisha, Dominic moved between the 4 incubators, touching each one with reverent gentleness through the medical ports. Finally stabilized, Aisha was moved to recovery, where 4 state-of-the-art incubators formed a protective circle around her bed. Dominic pulled up a chair between her and their miracle babies, his heart visibly torn between all 5 of his loves. "They need names," Aisha murmured, still groggy but determined to stay awake. They'd discussed possibilities for months, but made no final decisions, both slightly superstitious about naming the babies before meeting them. Dominic studied their firstborn daughter, the fierce one whose cry had first filled the operating room. "Aria," he suggested, "for the music she brought to our lives." "Perfect." Aisha smiled at their second daughter, slightly smaller but equally spirited. "Sage, for the wisdom we'll need to raise 4 babies." "Our wise little girl." Dominic moved to their son's incubators. "Phoenix for this one," he touched the 3rd baby's chamber, "born of fire and magic like that night we met." "And River." Aisha completed their family circle, watching their 4th miracle stretch tiny, perfect fingers. "For strength and persistence, always finding his path." Aria, Sage, Phoenix, and River Thorn. Dominic tested the names, love evident in every syllable. 4 perfect miracles. The babies were whisked away to the NICU, each accompanied by a specialist and a discreet security detail. Dominic had transformed an entire hospital wing into a secure private unit, taking no chances with Martinez still lurking in the shadows. As morning light filled the recovery room, Dominic perched carefully on the edge of Aisha's bed. "You did it, love," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "You brought 4 miracles into the world." "We did it," she corrected tiredly. "I couldn't have gotten through this without you." His laugh was shaky. "I was terrified the entire time. When your blood pressure dropped..." He shuddered. "I've negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, but watching you in that operating room... Worth it, though." She fought to keep her eyes open, exhaustion finally claiming its due. Beyond worth it. He kissed her forehead tenderly. Rest now. I'll watch over all of you. Through half-closed eyes, Aisha watched him move between the incubators, touching each one gently, whispering soft promises of love and protection to their children. The mighty CEO was gone, replaced by a father overflowing with wonder and devotion. The medical monitors beeped steadily. 4 tiny heartbeats and 1 tired but strong maternal pulse, creating a perfect rhythm. Outside, Manhattan awakened to another day, unaware that 4 new lives had just changed everything for the city's most powerful family. Nurses came and went, checking vitals and adjusting medications. Security teams maintained their vigilant watch. But in their private sanctuary, Dominic and Aisha existed in a bubble of pure joy, their love multiplied by 4 perfect miracles. "Sleep," Dominic murmured, noticing her fighting exhaustion. "I've got this watch." As Aisha drifted off, she heard him speaking softly to their babies, his voice full of promises and dreams. The man who controlled a global empire now seemed completely content, watching over 5 precious heartbeats, his own heart expanding to hold more love than he'd ever imagined possible. The morning sun painted their family tableau in gentle gold. 4 tiny fighters in their high-tech cradles, their mother resting peacefully, and their father standing guard over all his treasures. Beyond the hospital walls, challenges waited, corporate rivals, media speculation, the complexities of raising quadruplets in the public eye. But here in this moment, everything was perfect, measured in the steady beeping of monitors and the soft breathing of new life. Chapter 10. Public Storm. The headline splashed across the Wall Street Journal's front page, hit like a thunderbolt. Thorne Industries CEO's secret family, quadruplets born to unknown doctor. Within hours, every major news outlet had picked up the story, their carefully guarded privacy shattered by a leaked hospital record. Dominic stood at the window of their private NICU suite, his jaw tight with controlled fury as he watched reporters gathering outside the hospital. 3 weeks had passed since the baby's birth, and they'd managed to keep everything quiet until now. His phone hadn't stopped, buzzing since dawn, board members, shareholders, media outlets all demanding answers. It was Martinez, Garcia reported, entering with his daily security briefing. "We traced the leak to a cleaning service employee he bribed. She's already been detained." Aisha looked up from where she sat in the rocking chair, Arya nursing contentedly while the other babies slept nearby. "Is she okay? The employee? She probably needed the money." Dominic's expression softened as he turned to her. Even now, facing a media circus that threatened their peace, her first concern was for others. It was one of countless reasons he'd fallen so deeply in love with her. "I'll make sure she's taken care of," he promised. "But right now, we need to focus on protecting our family." His phone buzzed again, the board requesting an emergency session. The European merger hung by a thread, conservative board members panicking over the scandal. Everything he'd built seemed suddenly fragile compared to the precious lives in this room. "Mr. Thorne," Garcia interrupted gently, "they've discovered Dr. Bennett's identity. Reporters are at her brownstone and the pediatric clinic. Social media is exploding with speculation." Aisha's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted Arya's blanket. She'd known this day would come, but the reality was overwhelming. Her patients' families, her colleagues, her carefully built professional reputation, everything would be affected by this revelation. Dominic crossed the room in 3 long strides, kneeling beside her chair. "We knew this would happen eventually," he said softly. "The question is, how do we want to handle it?" She met his gaze steadily, drawing strength from his presence. Over the past months, they'd built something precious. Not just their miracle babies, but a partnership based on trust, respect, and deep love. No more hiding, she decided. These children deserve parents who are proud to acknowledge them, who never make them feel like a scandal to be managed. Pride and love blazed in Dominic's eyes. Then we do this on our terms. He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. I'm calling a press conference. Today, we control the narrative from this moment forward. The next hours passed in carefully orchestrated chaos. Their team of publicists arrived, drafting statements and planning strategy. Dominic's sister Zara brought a selection of camera-ready outfits for Aisha, along with her unwavering support. The board is threatening to vote against the merger, Dominic's CFO reported grimly. Martinez's people are fueling the fire, suggesting scandal and impropriety. Let them, Dominic interrupted, his voice holding steel. He stood behind Aisha's chair, one hand resting protectively on her shoulder as she burped Phoenix. The merger doesn't matter compared to my family. The merger matters to millions who need better health care, Aisha reminded him gently. We'll find a way to save both. His fingers squeezed her shoulder, silent acknowledgement of her wisdom. Together they prepared to face the world, their babies sleeping peacefully through the storm gathering around them. The hospital's main conference room had been transformed for the press conference. Security was tight, every person in attendance thoroughly vetted. Cameras flashed as Dominic took the podium, his CEO persona firmly in place, but softened by new purpose. 3 weeks ago, he began, his voice carrying authority and emotion in equal measure, I experienced the 4 greatest miracles of my life. My children, Aria, Sage, Phoenix, and River Thorn, were born to their brilliant, beautiful mother, Dr. Aisha Bennett. Cameras clicked frantically as Aisha joined him at the podium, elegant in a deep blue dress that complemented her post-pregnancy curves. Their hands joined naturally, presenting a united front. Dr. Bennett and I met 8 months ago, Dominic continued. One extraordinary night led to an even more extraordinary blessing. Since then, I've fallen deeply in love, not just with our miracle babies, but with the remarkable woman who brought them into the world. Reporters called out questions about the merger, about Martinez's accusations, about the secrecy surrounding the pregnancy. Dominic fielded each with diplomatic skill while maintaining his grip on Aisha's hand. Yes, the timing is complicated, he acknowledged. Yes, this news affects business relationships and stock prices. But let me be absolutely clear. My family is not a scandal to be managed or a crisis to be contained. They are my greatest joy, my deepest pride, and my highest priority. Aisha stepped forward then, her natural grace drawing all eyes. We understand the public interest in our story, she added, her voice clear and confident. It's not traditional or conventional, but love rarely follows corporate timetables or business plans. We chose privacy during my high-risk pregnancy to protect our children. Now we choose openness to give them a legacy of truth and pride. The press conference continued, each question answered with careful honesty. Yes, they'd kept the pregnancy private. No, there was no corporate impropriety. Yes, they were in love and committed to their family. No, the merger wasn't dead. In fact, Dominic's dedication to healthcare improvement had only strengthened with impending fatherhood. As they left the podium, a reporter called out, Dr. Bennett, will you be leaving your practice to become Mrs. Thorne? Dominic tensed, but Aisha's answer was perfect. I will always be Dr. Bennett professionally, she said firmly. My commitment to healing children remains unchanged. As for becoming Mrs. Thorne, she smiled up at Dominic, that's a different press conference for a different day. Back in their private suite, watching their babies sleep peacefully through the media storm, Dominic pulled Aisha close. You were amazing out there, he murmured into her hair. I'm so proud to have you by my side. We did it together, she reminded him, snuggling into his embrace, like everything else since that night. His phone buzzed. Early reactions to the press conference were overwhelmingly positive. The public loved their honest approach, their obvious devotion to each other and their children. Even conservative board members were softening, swayed by Dominic's clear prioritization of family values. Martinez's plan backfired, Garcia reported from the doorway. Public sentiment is strongly in your favor. The European board just released a statement supporting the merger, citing family values and ethical leadership as key factors. Dominic barely heard him, too captivated by River's tiny yawn as their youngest son stretched in his sleep. The empire he'd built, the merger he'd fought for, everything paled compared to these precious moments with his family. "Sleep," he urged Aisha, seeing exhaustion in her eyes. "I've got this watch." As she drifted off in the comfortable chair, Dominic stood guard over his treasures. Outside, the media circus continued, but here, in their sanctuary, peace reigned. They'd faced the storm together and emerged stronger, their love story now public, but no less magical for being shared with the world. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight was for counting tiny fingers and toes, for whispered promises and dreams of the future. The mighty CEO had found something far more precious than corporate success. A love story that had given him not just 4 miracles but a completely new understanding of what truly mattered in life. Chapter 11. Hearts Align. The NICU's soft lighting cast gentle shadows as Aisha completed her nightly rounds of their baby's monitors. 2 months had passed since their birth, and all 4 were thriving beyond expectations. She adjusted Phoenix's blanket, smiling as he gripped her finger with surprising strength. Just like his father, Dominic's voice came softly from behind her. Always holding on to what matters. She turned to find him in the doorway, his tie loosened after another long day of balancing empire and family. Since their public revelation, he'd restructured his entire schedule to spend evenings with them, often working from a makeshift office in the corner of the NICU suite. "The merger papers came through today," he continued, moving to check on Sage, who was making tiny noises in her sleep. "European Healthcare Solutions is officially part of Thorn Industries. Millions will have access to better care." "Congratulations," Aisha said warmly, knowing how hard he'd fought for this victory. Martinez retreated to lick his wounds. The public backlash against his attempted sabotage was significant. Dominic's smile held satisfaction, but no malice. Turns out people prefer love stories to corporate warfare. They moved together in practiced harmony, checking each baby before settling into their usual evening routine. The nurses had learned to give them privacy during these precious hours, though security remained vigilant outside. "Dr. Chen says they might be ready to go home next week," Aisha mentioned, watching River's steady breathing. "All their tests are strong, and they're gaining weight beautifully." Dominic's hand found hers, fingers intertwining naturally. "About that." He seemed uncharacteristically nervous. "Come with me. There's something I need to show you." Curiosity piqued, Aisha followed him to the elevator. Garcia's team fell into formation around them, a presence they'd grown accustomed to over the months. The private car took them to the penthouse level, but instead of turning toward their living quarters, Dominic led her down a different corridor. "Close your eyes," he requested softly. She complied, trusting him completely. The sound of doors opening, his gentle guidance forward, then, "Open them." Aisha gasped. The entire floor had been transformed into a magical nursery suite. 4 beautiful cribs arranged in a gentle curve, each with its own theme, matching their babies' names. Aria's space flowed with musical motifs. Sage's featured healing gardens. Phoenix's glowed with subtle fire tones, and River's rippled with peaceful water elements. "The themes connect," Dominic explained, leading her through the space. "So they're together, but have their own spaces to grow." He showed her the state-of-the-art monitoring system, the comfortable feeding area with 4 specialized chairs, the peaceful parents' retreat space. But it was the details that brought tears to her eyes. Framed photos of their first family moments, copies of the medical journals featuring her research, artwork celebrating both their cultures. He'd created not just a nursery, but a testament to their entire journey. "It's perfect," she whispered, overcome with emotion. "Almost perfect." His voice held an odd note that made her turn. Dominic stood in the center of the room, backlit by the Manhattan skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. As she watched, he slowly knelt, pulling a velvet box from his pocket. "I had a whole speech prepared," he began, his usual corporate confidence replaced by raw emotion, about mergers and acquisitions, about how meeting you was the best hostile takeover of my heart. He laughed softly. "But seeing you here, in this space we've created for our family, all those practiced words seem inadequate." Aisha's heart thundered as he opened the box, revealing a stunning ring that somehow managed to be both elegant and unique, just like their love story. "I fell in love with you twice," he continued, voice thick with feeling. "First, on that magical night when your brilliant mind and beautiful soul captivated me completely. Then again, watching you fight for our babies, seeing your strength and grace through every challenge. You've given me 4 miracles, but the greatest miracle is how you've changed my heart." Tears flowed freely down her cheeks as he took her hand. "Dr. Aisha Bennett, brilliant pediatrician, amazing mother, love of my life. Will you marry me? Make this family we've created official. Be my partner in everything, raising our children, running this empire, changing healthcare for the better, growing old surrounded by grandchildren who inherit your compassion and wisdom." Through her tears, Aisha saw not just the powerful CEO who'd won her heart, but the devoted father who sang lullabies to their babies, the passionate man who fought to make healthcare accessible to all, the tender partner who supported her dreams of continuing her medical practice. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "yes, to all of it, to building this life together." The ring slipped perfectly onto her finger as he rose to kiss her, both of them laughing and crying at once. The Manhattan skyline sparkled behind them like 1,000 stars, celebrating their joy. A soft coo from the baby monitor reminded them of their other commitments. Hand in hand, they returned to the NICU, where 4 tiny miracles slept peacefully, unaware that their family had just become even more official. "I love you," Dominic murmured as they resumed their evening vigil. "All 5 of you, more than I ever imagined possible." Aisha leaned into his embrace, her new ring catching the soft light. "We love you too, our protector, our partner, our heart." Through the windows, night fell over Manhattan, but their private world glowed with joy. In the NICU suite, monitors beeped steadily, marking the rhythm of 5 precious heartbeats. Their love story had begun unconventionally, faced challenges that would have broken lesser bonds, but had emerged stronger for every test. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, bringing the babies home, planning a wedding, continuing to merge their professional and personal lives. But tonight was for savoring this perfect moment, for counting blessings that had multiplied far beyond their wildest dreams. "Step by step," Dominic whispered, echoing their early promise. "Together," Aisha completed, watching their miracles sleep. The ring on her finger symbolized not just their love, but the extraordinary journey that had brought them here, from one magical night to a future filled with more joy than either had dared to dream possible. Chapter 12. Symphony of Love. Sunset painted the glass-enclosed garden of the Thorne estate in hues of gold and rose, transforming the space into an ethereal wonderland. White orchids cascaded from crystal sculptures, their delicate blooms creating a canopy above the intimate gathering. At 3 months old, The quadruplets lay peacefully in their custom-designed bassinets, dressed in tiny formal wear that matched their parents' wedding attire. Aisha stood before a vintage mirror in her private dressing suite, heart full as she took in her reflection. The wedding dress, a masterpiece of silk and lace, flowed like starlight against her skin. Rather than traditional white, the gown shimmered with subtle undertones of cream and gold, celebrating both their cultures and their unique journey. "You look absolutely beautiful," Jasmine whispered, adjusting the cathedral-length veil. "Like a queen from a fairy tale." But Aisha's eyes were drawn to the 4 bassinets visible through the glass wall, each holding one of their precious miracles. Arya, the firstborn, was already showing signs of her father's leadership, her tiny hands reaching for her siblings. Sage observed everything with quiet wisdom beyond her weeks. Phoenix's energy radiated even in sleep, while River's peaceful presence balanced them all. A soft knock preceded Zara's entrance. "Everything's ready," she announced, then paused, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh, Aisha, my brother won't know what hit him." In his own dressing room, Dominic stood at the window overlooking the garden, his heart racing with an emotion far different from his usual boardroom nerves. The custom tuxedo, perfectly tailored to his athletic frame, incorporated subtle details that matched Aisha's dress, a unity planned without either seeing the other's attire. "The babies are all settled," his best man reported, though Arya tried to conduct the string quartet with her rattle. Dominic laughed, remembering how his eldest daughter had inherited not just his business sense, but his love of managing everything around her. Each of their children showed distinct personalities already, tiny mirrors reflecting different aspects of their parents while remaining uniquely themselves. The ceremony space transformed as sunset deepened into dusk. Thousands of tiny lights twinkled to life in the glass-enclosed garden, creating a galaxy of stars around the intimate gathering. Only their closest family and friends had been invited, those who had supported their extraordinary journey from that first magical night to this perfect moment. As the string quartet began playing, Dominic took his place beneath an arch of white orchids. His breath caught as Aisha appeared at the garden's entrance, radiant with joy and love. Their eyes met across the space, and suddenly they were back in that upscale bar, experiencing that first electric connection that had changed everything. The babies remained amazingly peaceful as their mother glided down the aisle, though Arya waved her tiny hands in time with the music. Phoenix watched with unusual focus, while Sage and River cuddled closer to each other in their shared bassinet. When Aisha reached him, Dominic took her hands in his, overwhelmed by the journey that had brought them here. "You are magnificent," he whispered, his CEO polish completely forgotten in the face of her beauty. The ceremony celebrated their unique love story, the magic of their first meeting, the miracle of their children, the strength they'd found in each other through every challenge. Their vows, written separately but somehow perfectly aligned, spoke of partnership, growth, and unconditional love. "I promise to support your dreams," Dominic vowed, his voice carrying clearly despite its emotion. "To protect our family while letting each member shine independently. To love you more each day, through board meetings and baby feedings, through medical breakthroughs and midnight crises." Aisha's vows matched his in depth and beauty. "I promise to be your partner in all things, to help you balance empire building with bedtime stories, to remind you that true power lies in love, and to face every adventure by your side." As they exchanged rings, the babies seemed to sense the moment's importance. All 4 stayed perfectly quiet, tiny witnesses to their parents' union. The official pronouncement was met with joyful tears from their intimate gathering, but the newlyweds had eyes only for each other and their miraculous children. Their first dance transformed the garden into a scene from a fairy tale. Dominic held Aisha close as they moved to the music. the glass walls reflecting infinite versions of their happiness. Above them, stars began appearing in the early evening sky, nature adding its own decorations to their celebration. Later, as the reception continued around them, they took a private moment with their babies. Each child was awake now, responding to their parents' joy with coos and smiles. Dominic cradled Phoenix and River, while Aisha held Arya and Sage, their family circle complete and perfect. "Did you ever imagine," Aisha asked softly, "that one night could lead to all this?" Dominic looked at his bride, then at their miracle babies, his heart fuller than he'd ever dreamed possible. "That night, I thought I was just breaking my rules about mixing business with pleasure. Instead, I was finding my destiny." As if understanding the moment's significance, all 4 babies chose that moment to laugh, their joy echoing through the magical space. The sound drew their guests' attention, cameras capturing the perfect family tableau, the powerful CEO and brilliant doctor, now united in marriage, surrounded by the 4 tiny miracles that had brought them together. The evening continued like a beautiful dream. Their first official family photos captured every perfect detail. Aisha's radiant smile, Dominic's obvious adoration, 4 babies dressed like tiny royalty. The intimate gathering celebrated not just a wedding, but the extraordinary love story that had defied convention and created miracles. As the celebration wound down, Dominic and Aisha stood in their private moment, watching their sleeping children. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, raising quadruplets while balancing careers, continuing to merge their different worlds, building the future they'd dreamed of together. But tonight was for savoring this perfect culmination of their journey. From one magical encounter that had sparked an unexpected pregnancy, through medical crises and corporate battles, their love had grown stronger with every challenge. Now, officially united as a family, they stood ready to face whatever the future might bring. "I love you," Dominic whispered, holding his bride close as they watched their miracles sleep. "All 5 of you, more than I ever imagined possible." "We love you too," Aisha replied, her ring catching the starlight. "Our protector, our partner, our heart." As night fell over their magical garden, the Thorne family stood complete and united. Their love story hadn't begun traditionally, but it had grown into something rare and beautiful, a symphony of hearts beating in perfect harmony, creating music that would last a lifetime. Subscribe if you liked.